we kind of look at what I think is a mostly completed transfer portal class, maybe a couple names left out there. I know you've started to do some deep dives into some of the younger guys in this transfer class, as whether it's Hunter or
Yeah.
Nwaneri and some of these guys. Where what have you found about their rise to the high profile recruits and sort of how they've ended up at Nebraska?
Yeah, I mean, the ones I've done, I would say that the thing that stands out about all of them that's common is they didn't let the rankings really affect their rise at all. I think the guys were just very focused on their process, and Nyziah Hunter was like a guy who he started off, lower star, and he just went out and earned it, and ended up a 4-star guy. And I don't know that meant a lot to him. It was just like he got it done because he just produced, and he has an extra gear, and that's what you read a lot about from his time coming up. That I was looking at his numbers. He was targeted 57 times last year at Cal and had 40 catches on that. I mean, he's very efficient. He had 219 yards on passes beyond 20 yards. So 219 of what is like 570 or whatever he put up. So he could be a threat down the field. The guy that I think is fascinating, who I don't know that people are talking over him, but it's understandably there's a lot of talk about Kean Hunter. But Hardley Gilmore might have as much upside as anybody, and he arrived at Kentucky at like age 16 and was, going through a football season at 17 years old last year. And you go back and read even some of the comments from like DeKeel Shorts and guys in the Kentucky program. They just said he goes hard every play. Like, he's just one of those guys. And so I think this is a deal where, especially at that receiver spot, Dana Holgerson obviously trusts DeKeel Shorts a lot. He was the one guy he wanted to bring in. And you got Nebraska fans, I think, have to, you show a little trust in Shorts too, that he's seen, especially Key and Gilmore up close, and he sort of knows their makeup, and that those guys will go to work, with all this NIL money and all whatever. They're still going to put it down and give you a good day's work and get stuff done. And so I think that's important. And I think Williams Nwaneri is similar. I know Missouri fans, they want to like wave their hand like, oh, big deal, he didn't do anything. It was his first year playing on the defensive line in college football. I know very few guys who have made just a dramatic impact at that position right off the bat. So I think Nebraska's got just an incredibly high-end prospect. And it's still amazing to me to think about, in the last class, Rhule in our rankings was number 7 overall. And Nwaneri was 6. I mean, 2 of the top 7 players, and people can do what they want with rankings, but that's pretty that's something to say out loud about Nebraska football, that you have that right now.
BC, for Nebraska, in trying to figure out like this, the competition thing is obviously huge, right? They talk about it daily, and I was joking, during the bowl trip where he even made like the 12 days of Christmas a competition amongst the team. How would you like to see, or could you see coaches now that have to sift through numbers quickly changing the structure of their offseason workouts and practices?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I would guess so, right? I mean, you would have to you got to make sure everybody's getting – they've always done a good job, I think, with this staff about players feeling like they are putting film out there. But you do need to probably get some guys out this spring. Like, it's not just that they're taking reps with like the third team or whatever. Like, you got to mix guys in with first and second and see what they're made of. See what they can do against who you think are the top guys on the other side of it, because they do probably have to have a quicker trigger on some things and thinking about where guys fit. And the players, in fairness to them, need to know that too, with the situation as it is and the numbers game there. And so, I think a big part of this too, we always say this about recruiting. Everybody who's on that field at Nebraska was the best athlete, like in 5th grade or in 8th grade. They were always the top dog in their class. And a big separator is who loves that game, like who just like they eat and sleep football. And I think whatever you can do to sort of figure that out with new arrivals, with guys who've been here a couple of years, the guys who are going to do the extra, I think that's what you're trying to calculate in a short amount of time. Who is not just a great athlete or whatever, but they have that extra desire just to learn the game beyond what might be even normal. So I think that can be a separator right now.
BC, how do you tell that with transfer portal guys when you're talking about recruitments that last a couple weeks at most, it seems like, whereas you've got a hard enough time trying to figure it out when you're spending a couple years with these high school kids?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly hard. And, I don't displace the idea that you could have someone in this day and age who just showed up and then leaves like in a few months. That's always possible too. But it is an interesting situation where you're banking so much on guys who you didn't get as much time with. I think a big deal was, you might remember in December, Matt Rhule was talking about how he wanted to be really involved. Like, he's going to be involved, obviously, in the evaluating of guys. And I say obviously, but it's not obvious some other places. He was pointing out some schools where, like, the head coach, they didn't really know about a guy they'd offered out of the portal. And I think Nebraska does have that situation where their head coach does know that. And that's how I would want my head coach spending the calendar, the way it was set up at least. So I think Nebraska, at least had their head man and some of the key guys involved in going through that. But it's a good question, Ravi, because I don't think it's easy. That's why it probably helps when you have a Da'Keel Shorts in this case who knows a couple guys and where maybe you have in on a few players. But it's a challenge.
That's Brian Christopherson, Husker247. BC, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk next week.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.